In this video, I'm going to show you guys how to replace your inner tie rod on a Subaru Forester. It's located behind your front wheel. I'm going to use a 19mm socket to take the wheel off. You want to make sure the wheel doesn't fall off, so just keep a hand on it while you take that last one. All right, so now I'm going to break free the jam nut for the tie rod. I'm going to put a 19mm on the nut, and I'm going to put a 20mm on the hold. All right, so we're going to crack this jam nut free. All right, now that I've cracked that loose, I'm going to mark it so I know where it goes when I put it back on. I used a 19mm socket to remove the tie rod nut. All right, so typically there's a cotter pin that holds this castle nut down. It locks it in so it doesn't come out. The hole is got the rest of the cotter pin in there. I was unable to see the cotter pin really. It kind of disintegrated over time with rust. So I just zipped it off, and now when I take this down, I'm going to clean out the hole so that it allows us to put a new cotter pin in. All right, so now we're just going to tap this down. Usually you don't have to hit too many times before it comes out. So I'm going to leave, I loosened my jam nut. I'm going to leave it there. I have marked it. Now I'm just going to take this off, put it on the new one. Now you can either count the turns or you can count the threads. I'm going to compare the two tie rods to see if they are the same length and have the same amount of threads. I'm going to leave my jam nut there in case the new tie rod is a little shorter or a little longer. I know exactly where the old one was. All right, so first thing we're going to do is take this clamp off. So what you want to do is get a small flathead, and I like to jam it in there and then kind of twist it like so. What you want to do is kind of spread this clamp apart so you can get the boot off of the back. All right, so once you get that loose, take my clamp right out of there. Okay. All right, so once we get that pulled back, or freed up in the back, it should slide down a little better, or at least pull back enough to take it off the other end. Just going to stretch this out a little bit. So you might have to put a little bit of oil on that and work it back and forth to get it past the lip. I did get it over the lip of the inner tie rod. I'm just going to scoot it down out of the way. All right, so now you're going to take your nut off, take your clamp off, and your boot. You're going to reinstall these on the new part if it doesn't come with a boot or clamp. This is an inner tie rod tool. This piece slides onto these flat spots. There's two flat spots on either side. Slide it on. Slides into this tool. Makes your life easier. Place our tool on. And then we're going to place the other end on. I'm going to line up where that goes. So now that we have that on, I'm going to loosen it. So now we can take it off by hand. All right, so now you want to take your tie rod, your old one next to the new one. You're going to look at it, make sure the threads, there's the same amount of threads. You're going to count your threads and mark it where the same amount of threads are if your tie rod is the same length and the same amount of threads. If it's not, then you need to adjust accordingly. Now we're going to put a little bit of red thread lock on the new tie rod, and we are going to put this in the vehicle. All right, so now we're going to thread our new tie rod in. All right, snug it down. Don't over tighten. You will break your rack and then you don't want to replace that. We're going to get our wire tie ready to snug up when the time comes, ahead of time. I'm going to put a little bit of caliper grease on that so it slides through and over the lip. All right, so now I'm going to turn my wheel back to center so I can get that boot on. All right, so once you see that it's on, you can check from underneath. Mine's on. I'm going to get my wire tie to go where it needs to go, which is a little baby lip right after the boot starts. You can kind of feel it. You can also check your work before you zip it. And then you're going to tighten it up. All right, so now we can cut the excess tie off. Okay, so now our boot is in the right place. I'm going to reuse my spring clamp because it's in good shape. And now your spring clip's on. We're going to put our tie rod, outer tie rod back on. We're noticing where the mark is on the threads. Mine are on the other side where you can't see, right here. So now I'm going to put my jam nut on there and my tie rod end. Now I'm going to put my jam nut on. I'm going to go right on top of the yellow where my mark is. Put this in. When I'm close, I'm going to jam it down slightly, not completely, because I still have to get it in here. So we're very close to where we need to be for our alignment. All right, so now we're going to turn our wheel straight. Put our tie rod in. Put our castle nut on. Torque this to 19 foot-pounds, which we're there. You want to make sure your hole is lined up through the castle nut so that you can feed your cotter pin through. Do not loosen this nut to get to that hole. You're just going to tighten it a little bit more if you need to. All right, so I'm going to push my cotter pin through. Okay, now I got a cotter pin through. Just going to wrap it around the nut like that. So now that that's in, you're going to tighten down your jam nut. And when that's tight, you're going to put your wheel back on. Reinstall your front wheel. You're going to start the lug nuts by hand. You're going to snug it up, bottom one first, walk the wheel on. Snug them up, and then it's 89 foot-pounds to torque it. We're going to torque our wheels to 89 foot-pounds in a star-like pattern. I usually make sure I go one time around, one more time, and take it for a road test. You will need an alignment. Now you can take a deep breath because this job is done.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.